If you understand the friction points and you understand the exact elements for it, you can increase your close rates by being faster and responsive. And that could be as much as 10 to 20%. So if you're closing $1 million, bucks of business a year, basically, that could be like an extra 200 grand as well, basically.
And that's not just better sales, really. It's just better memory.
Welcome to the Implement AI podcast, the podcast where we explore the impact of AI on your business. I'm Piers, Linney, alongside my co-host and co-founder of Implement AI, Dr. Aalok Shukla. We cover the real-world applications and impact of how AI can be practically applied to drive growth and efficiency in your organization. We cut through the jargon to focus on actionable strategies and use cases to highlight the transformational power of AI. Let's dive into today's conversation.
I'm Piers.
I'm Aalok.
So we've been doing this podcast now for nearly 3 years.
It is 3 years.
And this is the first time we've
IRL.
ever done it. IRL. IRL.
In real life.
You haven't got teen kids either.
Synchronously, biologically.
So well, here we are. So we're in Dubai. We've had an event here yesterday, which will probably be a few weeks ago by the time this goes out, which went very well.
Very well.
About 100 people turned up.
Putting the AI in Dubai.
Yeah, that's our new strap line, actually. We might change that from the grow your workforce, not your
it's
payroll.
regional.
Yeah. So we have definitely been putting the AI in Dubai. It's quite different here in terms of people's understanding of it and the approach. So we've got hopefully a few new people who are going to listen into this podcast. And really, this podcast we're going to probably keep holding this up. If you're listening to this, you probably want to have a look on YouTube. But we are holding up our AI Workforce Playbook. And this is number 2 in a series of 3 podcasts we're doing, which are kind of going for this book, which we put a lot of time and effort into. And the first one was all about, the second workforce. What is it? Digital workers. This one is explaining in more detail what is a digital worker and when do you use them? When are they applicable, essentially? And the last one we'll come back to really is about moving from pilots, which everyone's doing, to platform and actually having these things in production.
Exactly, running in your business, absolutely.
So let's get into it. So digital workers, right? We're going to explain to you what the agents are, when they're useful, when you might want to use them. We're going to talk about agent teams. So people don't sometimes confuse that they want an agent. You say, what do you want the agent to do? They want it to do 10 things. And that's 10 agents. It's not one agent, is it? So, what is an agent? What can they do? And then we're going to talk a little bit about some examples about businesses and how they run on kind of workflows and not tasks and how we'll approach that. So let's go through the 3 types of AI agents. And this is basically the content we did in our event yesterday in Dubai as well.
Yeah, no, so exactly. So very quick one on Dubai, loving it here, absolutely fantastic energy. You look at the vision of everything, you see how, new skyscrapers are kind of literally coming out of the ground or the sand in many different places, and, entire islands are coming out. So the energy in the room yesterday was really forward facing. So many entrepreneurial businesses, partners, interest in deploying digital workers for different strategies. There were some people that were looking at having, how can I scale up Polish support, Polish customer support, and say, for example, Turkish customer success. And they were saying that, okay, we could use digital workers, and we'll go through some of the types that they could use for that. And other ones were looking at I want to scale my business, but I don't want to hire more people because I've got some visa things I need to kind of coordinate and also make sure I can scale more efficiently or even unlock my team to do more stuff. So it was brilliant energy in the room yesterday, definitely. So if we think about the types of AI agents or digital workers, the way you want to think about it is just like with people have different skills. So if we think about 3 categories of different digital AI agents, so one type would be what we call interactive agents. And that's where they're basically going to be primarily conversational. So it could be with people or it could be with team members or employees. The second category that we're going to talk about is going to be action agents. So that's where we're actually doing execution of things. And that could be computer use agents where they actually operate a SaaS software or look on the internet and do different things like physically operating a browser. Or they could be using APIs to actually action things, update CRMs, pull different things, all that kind of stuff like that. And the third category is analyst agents. They're probably one of my favorite ones, actually, finding out new insights and intelligence and opportunities from the data that you've already got.
I wouldn't show favoritism amongst AI agents. They might come back to haunt you.
I love all AI equally.
And also, as we go through, we've got some examples as well. And again, so this is all in our AI Workforce Playbook. And if you're listening to this and you're keen to get your hands on it, We've probably linked in our social media on LinkedIn. Alok's holding it up. But there'll be links in the description. And also, if you go to our website, we've got a resources center. It's in there as well. So let's do interactive agents.
Exactly. So this is part 4 in the playbook, okay? So we talk about interactive agents. So think about it. Interactive agents primarily will communicate directly with people or customers, or at the same time, employees or partners. They understand natural language, and they can also maintain context across conversations. So what does that mean, basically? It can have conversations via chat, email, or voice. It can understand intent and context from messages, like even little things like name and entity recognition can be pulled out from the data, or strategic insights. It can provide information from knowledge bases, so it can pull up memory. It can pull up different resources you give it access to and retrieve that, say for example, for different elements. And it can ask clarifying questions where you want it to, just like an expert would ask detailed questions to get more context from it. See, that's one of the most important things. I'll come to that. Or it can escalate to people when required, because many people think, I don't know if my customers want to talk to an AI, basically, but you can absolutely escalate and use it in a very more interactive way rather than like the press 1 for this and all that kind of
But
stuff.
the way to think about these as well, which is obvious from the name, is these tend to be the ones where your colleagues, your customers, or your suppliers, whoever they might be, the ones that they interact with. So these are the ones where it's actually quite important.
They want an
Think
answer
about-
fast.
I think in Dubai, actually, just in Dubai, and someone was saying to me today that he's got a voice agent and it's got 3 dialects of Arabic. So that's why interactive agents, you've got to think more quite carefully about how they interact.
So let's think about some real world examples, okay? So 4 examples would be like customer support, sales qualification, customer success, or even a HR assistant. So think about customer support. How could you monitor, a support inbox, either by phone calls, emails, or messaging? How could you respond to common questions which are answered in your knowledge base and your documentation about how to solve certain things? How can you troubleshoot technical issues by talking through things step by step? So often someone's stuck on something. It's like, okay, no problem. Tell me where you are. Step 1, have you tried this? Step 2, this. Have you with me so far? What's really quite nice is that AI is infinitely patient, and it can actually go logically through all the steps. And the nice thing it can also do, it can escalate problems to humans where needed, but it can also send detailed follow-up. So people sometimes think like, oh, human or AI, as if it was a binary category. But think about it as enhancing your customer support. So you're adding a whole new set of skills where you've got team members of customer support, which can update the CRM automatically, but at the same time provide step-by-step technical support with perfect detail, adhering to the actual SOPs in the correct way that a human wouldn't do, and it'll ask all the questions it's supposed to, and it can also send the details by email afterwards, in a nice PDF. So that's one example of customer support, which I think is huge, basically.
Also, it's worth mentioning multimodal.
Yes, exactly. So the point there with customer support is like, you're stuck on something, send me a picture of your screen, send me a photo of your bill. What's the issue that's going on? You're not able to install this sync correctly. Send me a photo of it, right? And then you can actually then process that information and go into the right detail. Because the thing is, like, your team member, the human, would need additional context. So this could be their assistant to capture everything and make sure it's ready. So that's one thing for support, basically. Second one is sales qualification. This is very important. Somebody opts in on your business to like book a studio, or to, for example, like, inquire about something, or to request a quote. The faster you can get back to them, the more likely they are to kind of like progress along that sales process. See, sales process is not binary. It's not like, I'm not going to buy, I'm going to buy, right? It's going to be a building trust process. Like, how well do you understand me? What questions are you asking from me? What proposal can you give me, or what options can you give me, and how can we have a conversation about that? So if you just think about that, right? Somebody inquires about something. Most people have a web form, and it's either 2 types. It's either contact me with just nothing and free text. So you don't know what kind of answer you're going to get, basically, and typically it'll be not a good one because people's thumbs and fingers are tired.
And if they get a type of an email address, it's all over.
Exactly. But then the other one is going to be like a massive long form, which is just friction personified, basically, right? Because you're not going to fill out all those different details because your will to live is literally dropping every time you drop down a new thing. So this is the whole point, where you could just literally request a call or request a message, and then it could be, you voice note back, or you WhatsApp back, or you receive a phone call, and you answer some questions. And if he says like, look, I'm going to ask you 30 seconds worth of questions, and from that I'll create a detailed proposal for you, you're open to that. You understand, right? So this can then engage with you immediately, ask discovery questions to understand your needs, and very specifically, like, the difference between an expert salesperson and a novice is the expert switches their questions, their follow-up questions, based on the precise context the customer gives them. So let's just say, for example, you were selling shipping container, right? If you know that one set of customers is going to be like a building site one, and the other one's going to be like, let's say, a cafe, one of the building site thing, a big question like, how many building sites do you operate currently? 50. Well, you potentially could sell 50 at a time, potentially, right? Another one's like, I'm going to setting up a cafe, but I've never done it before, but I want more customization. You can ask them more questions in that kind of way, in that direction. So having that kind of generic approach isn't very good. So that's that kind of like, sales qualification agent. And they can also book meetings if needed with qualified prospects. The other ones would then be like HR assistants. Let's think about that category. Imagine you've got like an expert person in a department, HR person, and you want to like scale that department because you're opening more shops or you're opening up, more locations, but you don't want to increase the HR team necessarily, right? You want to assist them in an intelligent way because otherwise they're just answering the same questions over and over again.
Or if you haven't got HR, but you're, reasonably large business, but all the questions come to you.
Yes, exactly.
Where's this? Where's that? How do I do that?
So then that's a function of your time. So yesterday in the workshop, I was saying that like, who here has a high paid person who's spending many hours a week answering questions which someone else could have answered or AI could have answered? So in this sort of situation, the HR assistant will answer employee questions about policies. It'll reference it, help with benefits enrollment and different elements like this, guide them through expense subscription and submission processes, and provide onboarding. So it's kind of like a support agent, if you understand, but you're augmenting a department. So that's like the kind of like areas with the interactive agents. And again, it's by messaging, live chat, and email as well. Anything to add on that one?
So I'd add a customer success, which is in the book. So that's where it's that ongoing relationship. Because what you can't do, we had a long discussion on this yesterday at the event, is you often have this big database or this long tail. And what you tend to focus on, the ones you think are warm and the ones that you interacted with, most recently. So the longer one, it kind of dries up from the end. And what you can do is keep going through it and talking to people, finding out and engaging with them, extracting information and learning about them. And therefore you're personalizing your marketing and you're not going to miss things. So the long tail, you can extract more value out of it in customer success.
Exactly. I think increasingly more products and services are customized. And like you said, that like imagine you've got customers for a long time, you'll typically have usage data or purchase data from their account over the last 12 months, 2 years, 3 years. And you would also be able to like, let's say, research them as a person or as a business and understand that their needs might have changed. So you might have them in a contract from 2 years ago, but they may have expanded multiple locations, added new partners, new people.
And you just haven't got back to them.
And you don't even
you haven't got around to it.
You don't even know what they're up to.
Yeah.
So in this sort of situation, you could actually then have the customer success agent have that data and then reach out saying, hey, I noticed that you've got these things. Can we have a conversation to see if we can actually unlock more value from you from your existing subscription?
Which is, we're going to come on to analyst agents and also team, which is why you want team. But
exactly.
Before we go there, let's do action agents.
Exactly. So action agents are basically like these are like they're not stuntmen basically, but they're the ones that do tasks and actually execute workflows autonomously. So they'll actually do things, press buttons, make things happen, push data into systems and stuff like that. And we think about two approaches to action, okay? We think about one, which is computer use agents. Let's talk about that. So when most of our work is actually opening up a browser, logging into a SaaS or grabbing something from somewhere, going to company's house, downloading a PDF or following UI basically. So computer use agents literally operate the UI. So we've got some customers where they're using it for a research, where they go to the websites of customers, find out what technologies the website's built from, and find out which people are on there by literally clicking everything and seeing what's going on, see when it was last updated and all the different details. Or it's operating a SaaS. So quite often, rather than having somebody else logging in, checking something out, downloading a report, doing things, the computer use agent logs in and does those things basically, which is quite mind-blowing when you think about it, right?
Well, this is, we all say it's a thin end of a fat wedge, but this becomes the end almost of remote work, essentially.
Yes. If you can do it on a browser, basically, the AI can do it, basically, and the expansion sets are happening all the time. So they can use any web-based or desktop application. Desktop needs some specialized customization, but essentially that's the principle. And if you think about it, some softwares that don't have APIs. So imagine you got something in and you want to be able to like look at how it will go. We'll come to that. The second one is task agents. They're more API based. So what that's going to do, or it could be code based. It'll connect directly to a software via API. So it could be, let's say, pulling something from Trello, pulling something from Asana, pulling something from QuickBooks, whatever like that. It can then execute commands programmatically. So it could be like pull the accounts receivable from here, analyze that based on a little team based on some different data, and then, push that to another system, which will then be for the team to follow up with. So that could be, for example, as part of your customer success team that you just said, go and pull the usage data for the last 6 weeks from these customers. Then it could go to a different agent, which would then be analyzing stuff, and then it goes to the customer success agent potentially.
Yeah, so the way I look at it is, the way to imagine it is you've got your interactive agents almost on the outside,
Exactly.
interact in the outside world. So they capture data, engage with people.
Front of house.
Front of house, yeah, good way of looking at it. And then you've got the task agents who they say, well, I've got all this information, go do something, and they kind of do the work.
Yeah, exactly. So they're back end, isn't it? So it's almost like front stage, backstage, essentially, isn't it? That's the way to kind of think about it. So let's look at some real examples of action agents. So one would be monitoring emails for invoice attachments, for example. So invoice processing agent, extract the data from the PDF invoice, validate against a purchase order, and then enter the data into an accounting system. So there's a few steps there, and this is a bit of a mini team, but you get the idea that it can basically like get information and make something be updated, essentially, right? Another one could be lead enrichment. Detect a new lead came through from an opt-in form. Then it can actually research the company's website, research them on the internet, see what new signals happened. So it's actually like fresh data, not like some old historic thing. And then it will update your CRM, check company news and funding status, score the lead against ICP criteria, and then update the CRM. It could even then create a Slack notification saying this is a hot lead, needs to be followed up with basically by a team member. The other one would be order fulfillment, for example, like monitoring orders in an e-commerce system. It'll be checking inventory availability, checking the shipment and logistics system, and generate shipping labels. So again, it's like rules based in that kind of way. So I think that helps unlock it, the way that you can kind of understand it. Another examples would be like, getting a job sheet from somebody, loading up a SaaS software, and then pulling the details in that kind of area in that kind of way.
We'll take Ava on our website. So Ava on our website, if you haven't spoken to Ava yet, I recommend you do. Go to the website and have her call you, basically. So she'll call you. So she's an interactive agent. She'll speak to you, just kind of a bank qualification, finds information out. That's one thing. And then she has a number of tasks. So one is she's going to create a summary of the conversation. She's going to create a sort of a mini brochure about the conversations, a bit of collateral in there, some stuff about the business. Then she's going to email it to you and WhatsApp it to you. They're all tasks.
Exactly. And then what you don't see is it'll update our system, our CRM, and it will enrich as well within there, basically. So that's the whole workflow task, essentially.
So what I'm amazed by is credit control. Right? We haven't deployed we might. Alok's got an angry one.
Exactly.
Angry agent. But credit control, okay, you've got an interactive agent. It could be WhatsApp, it could be email. It's rules-based, isn't it? And then you have the tasks go and look at the invoices.
Yeah.
Is it been paid? Is it been paid?
If it's 31 days or 51 days or
go and
whatever.
Look at the bank account. Has it come in? No. And just keep looping.
Exactly.
It's an obvious one.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And then you look at type 3 analyst agents. So this is where you can actually see things you couldn't see before. So it's like research and intelligence. So analyst agents will gather information from existing data streams or create new data streams by conducting research to generate insights and produce reports. So they can synthesize information from multiple sources to answer questions, identify patterns, and support decision making. So one of my favorite ones is like, for example, where you can actually search and extract information from multiple sources, or you can generate reports and dashboards, or monitor for specific triggers. So
but you've got analysts looking almost an analytics
internally within your data,
and then some looking at the internal data.
Exactly. So think about like some of the real world examples. One of the highest value ones that we use all the time, and I think it's one of the most popular ones, is the call analyst agent, basically. So that's listening to all the phone calls that came in, but it could be Teams meetings as well.
This is the most powerful agent I think we do. Yes. I think because it just generates money out of nowhere.
Correct. It's just magic. It's like,
yeah, literally.
Do you want revenue or not?
Would you like some money
that you already had? Yeah. It's like basically going behind. It's like going behind the sofa, putting your hand in the sofa, and you pull out like thousands of pounds, basically, right? Or tens of thousands of pounds, or £100,000, basically. So the point there is like this is where the analyst agent will like go far beyond. Some people think, oh, I've got AI on my calls, it analyzes sentiment. I'm sorry, right? You're missing the point, basically, right? We're talking about understanding specific friction points, buying intent, name entity recognition, competitors that are mentioned, how well your team handled the call based 5 dimensions. Then also, like, did they discuss a high value service? If so, what's the value of that service? Did they buy or book an appointment? Didn't? Why didn't they do that?
You're learning recursively. So you're either learning to improve the agent's performance, or you're learning to improve the human's performance.
Or to increase your capacity.
Yep.
And so from there, like literally, like if you're like a healthcare clinic, or if you're like a, home improvement, like, a loft or a kitchen or anything like that, or bathroom, a roof, any kind of high value service, even like a car or anything like that, there is so much opportunity within there. Because 3 months ago, someone told you, call me in 3 months. you don't know who it is, right? Like, and they're ready to buy, but they didn't hear from you, basically. So call analyst is one of them. What that will also do is that other ones will be like, say, email analyst, go through all the past emails. So imagine, how many people have you had in your company over the last 3 years? How many people don't work for you anymore? What are all their inboxes? How many inquiries came in via the email that never got updated into the CRM? Like the main hello at email inbox or general inquiries at. Who is updating those into the CRM, basically? Nobody, because it's nobody's job.
If you've built a business, from small to large, when someone's saying sales leaves and you've picked up their mailbox, or the prospect has emailed you saying, what happened?
Yeah. I never heard from you.
You felt the pain.
Exactly. Or they contact you on LinkedIn or whatever like that, and it never got linked into anything like that. So the point there is like these email analysts and call analysts can spot missed opportunities, update your CRM, but more importantly, assist your team. They're like the superpower teammate your sales team at wish they had, basically. Or support team.
Also, these are things that humans can't do.
Yeah. And also detect churn. So if someone says, okay, Aalok, business development's not really the thing. Well, okay, losing customers. How about that? How about spotting frustration within your customers, analyzing everything, because your team won't always tell you what's going on.
Or declining use,
But sometimes your team won't tell you what's going on, right?
Yeah.
So you have to have.
We've had that.
Well, we have that. Of course we have. And so the point is like, if you've got an email analyst or a call analyst listening to stuff and detecting frustration, detecting issues and scoring against different things, you could have a customer
or looking at your platform.
Exactly. So all those things can help with everything. The other one that's super interesting and powerful is basically like a prospect research analyst agent. So this is where, for example, we actually are creating unique data sets for some of our companies that we work with, where they want to actually target certain types of vertical, and there isn't lots of good information. So if you're an SME in certain markets, often you can't buy good data. Very big companies like, Coca-Cola, stuff like that, you can get the data online, but typically within kind of mid-market or even like, low market SMEs, you don't find that fresh data. So if you create that by actually having, the agent, going to the website, analyzing different things or pulling information from, the internet in different ways, you can actually have very fresh data.
And it's relevant to your needs, not some generic data.
And it's up to date.
Yeah.
Like for example,
if you buy data, we'll mention names, but from platforms, they tend towards the mean, the average, whereas now you can create data sets that are actually specifically designed to find information and signals that relate to your business.
Exactly. And you can understand like specific things like who are the people there. Then you can analyze, based on purchases they've done in the past or which customers they worked in the past. So there's all sorts of things you can do there. So I think the key thing with deep analysis capabilities, you can understand buying signal intent, objection analysis, competitor intelligence, pricing discussion, deal risk assessment, missed opportunity identification. Like there's so many things within there. And so if you think about like when you would use which type, so you would use interactive agents when you've got high volume of repetitive inquiries. You need to have fast 24/7 responsiveness for your customers. There's a clear knowledge base or FAQ existing.
Well, so go back to that quickly. Everybody needs fast 24/7, but they haven't got it.
So you're losing money and you don't know it, basically, right? And you want to free your humans for complex cases. This is a very key thing. The number of businesses that want to get an ROI where we can actually say, like, look, don't have your team members answer the call on the first thing. Get the AI to screen it, capture all the information, so your team members not being constantly interrupted from their real work, and then the AI is capturing everything so then it can be got back to. It's a much better experience if you got all the information collected and your team member can concentrate on high value work, and then when they've got everything, they can then go to follow up in the right way, basically. So that's the key thing. Don't use interactive agents for highly emotional, sensitive conversations, complex negotiations, or, situations requiring genuine empathy, I would basically say,
Or just trying to do too much in that a call, for example.
Exactly. Use action agents when you've got repetitive based rules, data moving between systems, high volume document processing, and workflows with clear success criteria. I would not use action agents when you've got situations requiring a physical presence or workflows that change frequently. Like the number of times I've seen someone says, okay, here's our SOP, and it's not an SOP. It's basically, sometimes I do this, sometimes I do that, sometimes I do that. I don't use it for that, basically. And process without clear steps. Quite often, subjective judgment is not the way you want to use it, essentially. And analyst agents, you would use it when you want to gather information at scale. You want to have regular reporting and monitoring required. And research is time-consuming but predictable, and there's revenue hiding in plain sight in your conversations. Don't use analyst agents when it's like novel or unprecedented analysis. So what I would say variable, right? So imagine you've got, let's say, an email inbox, and within that email inbox, I'll solve it two ways. There's like some sales conversations, some customer conversations, some complaint conversations, stuff like this. Then you'd want to have a team of analysts. You'd have one which is filtering and triaging, and have a different one which is then analyzing all the sales opportunities, or potentially like political sensitive interpretations or strategic recommendations and needing some additional business context, basically, right? So I think the key thing is everybody kind of needs all three. but it's just a question of knowing when you want to use it
And
for which
then
use case.
we'll come on to teams. Don't try and have agents that are doing one is all right, but 2 or 3 of these things. No. But let's crack on though. So in the AI Workforce Playbook, the book we're kind of going through in this series, we've selected really 5 specialist teams that we focus on. And that's not because we like them or the sound of them. That's come out of 3 years of insights as to what works. So we've got sales, support, analysts, computer use. So let's run through those quickly, and then we'll get on to talking about why teams are important.
Yeah. So you think about teams, like think about like sales team. So the 5 teams is basically like sales, support, analyst, computer use, and task. So sales is like out of hours, like out of hours responsiveness, lead handling, reactivation, and booking. Everybody's kind of trying to do that all the time. And if you don't have a healthy, predictable, consistent sales function, you've got feast or famine. And feast or famine is not fun, basically, right? When you're busy, it's great, but then afterwards you're quiet, basically, right? The other one is going to be support, query handling, lookups, escalation, retention, helping your customers be served. So not just answering questions, going beyond that to where is my order, or even can I update this, or can I change my schedule, all that kind of stuff.
And that can be internal as well.
Absolutely. The other one is then going to be analysts, a call and email analysis that we talked about, quality assurance, sentiment, even like, for example, making sure compliance takes place. Like, did people mention something they shouldn't have mentioned? That's very important too. And then also surfacing opportunities. Computer uses data entry, system updates, and reporting. And then tasks can be sequencing, reminders, and workflow automation. So the whole thing is that all of your teams can consist and can configure through existing systems, and there's more than 600 integrations.
You can create other agents. So, for example, a support agent could be a pretty good compliance agent or credit control even.
You can even have other things done if you want to, like, dictate something and then help me post on LinkedIn. Like, that's possible, okay? But I'm talking about these use cases that will drive, revenue, capacity, or experience, like that will drive your P&L.
Yeah, so we talk about this, the matrix of complexity and ROI, and we want to play in the box where there is some complexity because it's AI, but we know it works, and there's sufficient ROI for you to want to deploy it. You're not trying to be too clever to go after the huge ROI where there's a risk element. We're playing in that bottom left box.
And you don't want to just over-optimize one person's job. You're trying to actually make sure that you can actually, as a company, increase your profit, increase the jobs for your team, increase your desirability as an employer. So that's the whole point. Sometimes it's a very important point. Sometimes when people are searching for what AI projects to do, they think about it in the kind of tools category to assist one role. And that tends to be if one champion just wants to improve their department versus think about the business as a whole and thinking how can I deploy repeatable workers that will actually either assist my team or augment my team by doing it in parallel, essentially.
Come on a moment to explain to you how you select those tasks. But we've got to do some advertising of ourselves. So if you're new to the podcast, hopefully you're not, but if you are, well, I hope you're enjoying it. So we've been doing this for 3 years, implement AI. We deploy digital workers into businesses of all sizes, really. We need to have workflows, customers, processes, data. We do work with some startups, some in private equity actually as well, where they're building platform businesses to do a consolidation play. So we try and optimize the platform so when they buy the targets, they can almost install that operating model. And we're going through today the AI Workforce Playbook, and that's a document we've created to help us work with you essentially, and kind of because there are some gaps in the middle sometimes in terms of understanding and how you implement AI, the clues in our name. And that's on our resource center, or if you follow us on LinkedIn especially, you'll see lots of content there as well. If you do enjoy the podcast, please leave a review, especially at Apple, it really helps. And also, if you want to find out more, you can join one of our webinars. They're every Thursday, it's UK time, at about 11:30. They're online as well. Right, so let's move on to them. How do you decide when an AI or an agent is going to be able to do something, or when you should deploy them?
Absolutely. So what we're talking about is deploying digital workers that make meaningful differences in a business. So you think about it, you wouldn't hire someone into your business if they only had to do something once a year. You think of a Christmas tree, for example, right? You use it once a year, basically, right? So use it for a couple of weeks. So that's almost like a temporary worker in your business, in your house. You're not using it all year round. We're talking about actually digital workers that will be using it and unlocking value day in, day out. They got a job, yeah, and you get an ROI from their work, basically. So the point that we want to play in is there's things that can be done ongoing that unlock more value, and the more you do it, the more value you get. So let's start here. you've got a task in mind. There's a flow chart here in 4.4 in the playbook, basically, right? And it says, does it involve using software or computers? I mean, if it doesn't, then probably not a good fit yet. You understand that? We're not dealing with embodied AI to actually like press the buttons yet in a physical system. But if imagine it has to continue. The second thing is the process clearly defined? If not, you need to document it first. If you haven't documented it, you can sometimes use analyst agents to help assist with the documentation. So sometimes people say, oh, Aalok, I want to have a support agent for out of hours, but I don't have the knowledge base. We can help with that because an analyst agent could help configure and get all the answers they had before and then help create the knowledge base for it. But let's just say documentation, great, exists. Let's go. Is it repetitive? So is it done more than weekly? Ideally daily. See, if it's done weekly, that's okay, as long as there's a good volume of things. Imagine every week, analyze every single thing that happened and go from there.
200,000 inbound, no, 10,000 inbound calls, then it's worth doing. If it's 7, it probably isn't.
Correct, exactly. So the point here is like, if it's not being done in that volume and repetitively, manual might be more cost effective, basically, right? The other thing is, does it require legal, medical, ethical judgment, basically, right? If it does, then you might need some human in the loop, basically, which is fine. If it doesn't, continue, basically. Even with human in the loop, you can still do that because like the AI can collect all the information and it doesn't make the decision. Very important thing. It's just making sure that everything's there so the doctor, lawyer, accountant can then make that decision, basically.
So I would say that we do work in regulated markets like wealth management, healthcare, financial services. And the point here is you take it along through that process as far as possible until you almost hit the regulatory barrier. And you stop and you get humans to do it.
Because they're accountable.
Currently. Well, that will change in the future.
That's because
as well.
they're licensed, isn't it?
Yeah.
So you always,
currently.
You have to have a basically a appointed
it's
responsible person.
Indemnity, someone's got to carry the can.
Exactly.
But also, in most cases, the AI is not there yet, let's face it, to do these things. So very important, legal, medical, ethical, regulated, humans in the loop.
Yes. But the AI can do so much. Like even like for medical, it can capture the symptoms, understand what people's problems are. It won't give recommendations, but it can actually capture everything and give copies.
But it can also, after the event, follow up.
Absolutely.
So it could say, well, actually, great, you did this. Now, were you compliant?
Exactly. Or how are you feeling now, basically, right? You can extend things there. The next point, so we go to the next one, is the data structured and accessible? See, if it's not, it might need some cleanup first. And again, some agents can sometimes help with that. But if yet, continue. And then the last one is like, do you have clear success criteria? Do you know what good looks like and what bad looks like? Because if you don't, then you need to define that first and we can again help with that, but then yes, continue. So then you can see if you've gone through all those things, you've got an excellent candidate for AI, digital workers, and you can think about what your estimated ROI is going to be, your estimated speed improvement, and your recommendation. Because the key thing you have to have is a benchmark of like, are people doing this how, and what's the outputs from that? So one thing I always say to people is there's two types of kind of work that people try and do. One is replicating something that's going on, which we kind of went through here. So it's like, can I redeploy this person to somewhere else? Or can I replace what the person was doing with the AI in this area so the person can do something else? Or can I just avoid hiring somebody new because it will do in that way? The other way that people do it is experiment, basically, right? It's like, okay, I want to learn and try something out, which I've never done before, because it would be not cost effective to do that, in which case I can then test for the AI to do that. That's good, but you have to understand that the learning there, the output is the learning, basically, right? Because you don't know what that looks like yet, but it can allow you to rapidly iterate and test things.
And I say my 2x2 matrix, that's the top right box.
Yeah. Exactly. So I think that's the key thing of like, can AI do that task, basically,
So let's explain teams, because people often say to us, I'd like an AI agent to do 10 different things. Okay. Now humans are quite good at variability. We can do 10 different things. Agents can to some extent, but we tend to deploy teams. So let's explain what that actually means.
Yeah. So let's talk. Let me deconstruct what you just said. Humans are good at like context switching and doing different things. They are. But remember we talk about, like in past episodes, we talk about like with a person, you get a full-time employee, basically. So you're basically buying 40 hours a week, 50 hours a year, something like that, right? 2,000 hours of time. Of that, about half of that is productive time of on task, basically.
And that's linked, and the value of that time is linked to their education, skills, experience.
Yeah, and motivation and all that kind of stuff, basically, right? Like, but let's just say you got 1,000 hours of on task work, which is like, I'm not searching, not looking things and stuff like that, right? Then within there, they would generally be very effective if they're doing the same thing repeatedly. But if you have to keep switching, you've got an on-ramp for your attention each time, basically. So what happens is, yes, a person can almost like fudge together lots of stuff, but the actual productivity is not so much. Now with teams, you're almost going to that and basically like, specialization of labor. You'll have one agent doing one part of the task, and then it can do a different part, and then a different one will do that bit. So everything's flowing very productively through it. So that's why you get more productive capacity. So individual agents are powerful. Agent teams are transformational. See, the true value is not deploying an agent to do one task. It's orchestrating multiple agents together as a coordinated team to handle end-to-end workflow. So the thing is, right, most work actually in your system rarely sits within one system. It requires handoff between different functions, and agent teams can mirror that reality because there's different types of intelligence needed at different stages. So let's think about digital worker orchestration or agent orchestration, right? Let's think of a simple agent. Handle customer support tickets. So ticket comes in, read it, answer something, right? That's a very simple way, basically, right? The other way is like an agent team. Is this customer frustrated? Detecting that part. The other one is then like, okay, let me research the account history. So a different one is then going to research the account history, what happened. Another one's going to like identify upsell opportunities. Another one's going to like help resolve the issue. Another one's going to book an account review with another team member, then also updating the CRM and alerting account manager. So that's like that's a team basically to approach it in that way. Another way is going to be process an invoice. That'll be like, have I received an invoice? Yes or no, basically. Another one will be like, extract the invoice data, validate that against the purchase order. Do I actually have that? There was those companies that like invoiced Meta and Apple for like millions, basically.
Yeah, it's been going on for years.
Yeah, but there was no purchase order, isn't it? Yet they still paid it, Checking the budget. Is that in the budget? Does it route for approval? Does it schedule the payment or update the forecast? I wouldn't recommend starting with some of those like actual executing the payment ones, but everything else, absolutely, to check everything, flagging anomalies, like in terms of things like, are all the bills within the same sort of amount? Like that's a different agent analyzing it in that kind of way, basically.
I think one we often come across though is analysts.
Yes.
So most situations, you're going to have an analyst somewhere. Now, maybe not in internal support, HR support, but say in sales, you're going to have an analyst which is maybe looking for new prospects, or maybe it's had a call or an email or WhatsApp if you're in Dubai, as I've noticed.
Yeah.
It's all WhatsApp. It's going to analyze that, maybe enrich it, and then there'll be another action. It might be a call, it might be updating CRM. So the analyst agents are typically
they're the gatekeeper
involved in a team.
They start
add a huge amount of value
because there's so much opportunity in what you're not doing.
Yeah.
Because
it's the unknown unknowns as well.
Exactly. And so the point there is that's where you start with, first of all, seeing what's missing. Then you start filtering it a bit more to the right people. Then you start augmenting those people so they can actually be assisted and do things faster. And then you actually start doing it in parallel where you've actually got like, autonomous areas doing those things. So that's how you kind of like start with a team. You start with one, and then you expand the capabilities as you go along, basically.
Let's make that real then. So again, in sales, we're kind of joking about, the money down the back of the sofa, but it's no joke, right? We see this every day.
That money is a loan payment, or that money is basically someone's mortgage payment.
Well, and it's de-risking your business.
Or someone's bonus.
Yep.
And if a team member doesn't get a bonus, they might leave you for a competitor.
Well, if you're in the business, it's a dividend.
Yes, exactly.
So let's go through some examples then of these hidden revenue opportunities where you can literally turn these things on and create value.
Absolutely. So let's think about how a coordinated team can take you from lead to revenue, or inquiry to revenue, basically. So stage one would be like lead capture and research. So imagine a new lead comes in for your website form, someone inquires, and then you can then research that company comprehensively. So let's just use a B2B example. So let's just say, for example, you get an inquiry through, you then look up that company, their size, their revenue, their funding, the tech stack, the tools they use, recent news and growth signals, keys decision makers and their backgrounds, financials, any notifications, all that kind of stuff. So what that then means is that stage one was like lead capture and research to update everything and research that company comprehensively. The second one can then be after the CRM is updated and even like maybe the team members updated that like this lead has come in, they're an ICP fit, I'm now going to contact them. So then it could actually send a personalized email within seconds or minutes based on the research saying, hey, based on what you've inquired about, it appears that we could be a good fit for you with these things. Ask some questions and reference specific talking points. So imagine there's some recent funding, tech stack, or some specific things where they're working with certain customers and you've got an opportunity that can help them even more, basically, right? Then it can engage in a multi-touch conversation, answer, initial questions from knowledge base, assess their buying timeline and readiness, qualify, budget and authority. And this can be multiple ways. See, it could be an email that goes out and it could say like, if you're interested in finding out and getting a personalized quote, call this number. or SMS on this number. So use it in a team in that way as well, right? So it's not just making phone calls cold. It's like make them turn it to an inbound. And so that's quite nice actually. And then it can determine if they're hot, warm, or cold, and then hand the qualified lead to a next agent and find out, when is that person ready to be, to go into it. Stage 3 can be booking a meeting. So imagine they say like, when are you interested in doing this? Imagine it's a time sensitive thing. Imagine you sell something for exhibitions, okay? And imagine it's like that kind of like wall thing to like create a deluxe exhibition display. And imagine their supplier pulled out last minute. This is time sensitive. This is like an avocado business. It's like, not ready. Don't buy now and it's gone forever, basically, right? So in that situation, you can find out, when would you like to talk about it? If they say 15 minutes or they say like, tomorrow, it could book the appointment into the person's calendar and have the different details and also create the deal in the CRM. It could flag it as important, add prep notes from research for the salesperson. So it's already on a plate for that person.
Or if it's a long-term opportunity, call me back in 11 months. It actually will do.
Exactly. And what it could also do is it could then also give pre-call intelligence stage 4 to your team member. So it sends a whole comprehensive background dossier. It could even visualize an example of what that person's stand could look like, basically.
But also, so if you've got a bunch of people say, call me back in 10 months, say events, for example, your sales team can get it every week, a kind of a schedule of, right, I am following up with these people, then you need to follow up as well. Whereas normally, let's face it, most businesses, that just doesn't happen.
Yeah, and the thing is like, when people exhibited at your event, did you take a photo of them? Did you understand what was going on? Could you show them what other companies are doing? This, like creating that kind of like FOMO and also even the visualization of like how things could be and other intel. So there's all those sorts of elements. So then that's the pre-call intelligence for your account executive essentially. And it could even give them a like visualization, which they could then show to the customer during a call to make them appear the hero. And then you've got the post-call analysis, which is like analyst agent and action agent, which is like analyzing the call recording or the team's meeting, action points, buying intents, spotting missed opportunities. The sales manager could get a report on like the script wasn't followed or these things were missing, or they could be like they did follow it, so they're eligible for their bonus basically.
And we're also building in our AI OS platform V2, if we want to call it that, agents that are going to do this actually. Look at the objective. Was it, how did it perform, and then what do you need to change to improve it?
Exactly. So how effective were they the actual work that generates that value?
So give some examples then. So let's talk about hidden revenue opportunities, the obvious ones like missed upsells, for example. And what we're seeing is the kind of upside.
It's so big.
Like numbers.
Yeah, it's so big. It's like crazy, right? So let's just talk about examples. So missed upsells, right? So many people do things in business that they don't take credit for. So example, let's say you're manufacturing something and imagine customers say, can you turn this job around quicker for me, please, basically. Generally, most businesses would charge extra for an expedited order. You look at like DHL or whatever that, it's not the same price for different shipment times, is it? It costs more, but people will happily pay it because it's linked to value for them, basically, isn't it? So in that situation, imagine you've got like an express service, turning around dry cleaning, turning around, the manufacture of whatever like this, but your team members are like, yeah, sure, we'll just do it for you, basically. Not even lazy, just they might even not know that you're supposed to charge extra for that, basically, because the person who onboarded them did not mention it. But imagine that's happening 100 times a day, and it's supposed to be £20 per rushed order, which the customer would have happily paid for. That's a lot of revenue.
Yeah, so this is not something we just made up.
No,
we've had this conversation.
Yeah, we had this conversation directly.
Yeah.
So that's like $2,000 a day, basically, right? So that's one example. And there'll be repeated objections, which would be like, look, I would like to buy from you, but last time you didn't do this for me. Now that's an issue, right? That is not something which you can just solve with a superficial communication. That requires a manager or a supervisor to get involved in it, find out what the objection was and go with it. We've had that situation ourselves, right? So we can actually see those from our analysts, that we actually understand what the issue is, so we can escalate that conversation. The other one's then going to be like massive like professional service firms where they've got different departments of highly skilled technical people that are like providing risk audit or legal or whatever. Those people are not salespeople, they're professionals. But they're dealing with an organization that has multiple needs. And they may have surfaced the need for maybe some of the other partners in their firm to work with those people, but they're just so busy with their piece of work and they think, later on I'll refer it. But if you've got like an analyst agent detecting those opportunities and even researching that company and surfacing saying, hey, based on this conversation, you should get Tim involved.
Or just benchmarking what an organization a property client of that size should be using these services,
or facilities
or
management
5
or
of
whatever
them,
like that.
but it's only using 2 of them.
Exactly. And then could you go with a combo deal, which is better, basically, right? Or could you do an introduction at least to a meeting or whatever it is? So the point is there's so much revenue.
It's
opportunity
Alok's
there.
never worked in professional services, offering combo deals.
Combo deal.
Yeah.
You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying. Would you like fries with that?
A
Would
bug-
you like
a-
professional audit with
a
that?
bug off. Yeah. All right.
So in that kind of way, but the principle applies, right? The point here is that like essentially it's just a bigger version of the same. You understand? Like so the point there is like it becomes very interesting, and the more you can be helpful to people, it makes things much nicer.
But go for some actual, so based on our experience, recent experience, like the numbers then. So what that means in terms of upsells and.
I mean, that can mean like up to like 15 to 25%, greater upsells, right? So imagine, for example, you got one line which is doing 200 grand a year, right? That could be an extra 50 grand of revenue without any marketing costs,
Because
without
what AI
anything
is,
else.
they don't forget the upsell. They don't forget the cross-sell. Whereas humans either do, or they're happy they've closed something and they want to move on to the next
And
one.
also, like, let's just say customers would happily buy from you, but they don't even know you offer that thing. So imagine you've got someone, let's just say, I don't know, let's say a longevity clinic, for example, right? And you're offering a certain protocol and they've bought some supplements from you, but they don't know you've just launched a whole new services line, basically, or a DNA test or whatever like that. It can spot all those things and you could suggest that. And then that becomes very interesting for them, basically, right? The other thing is then close rates, right? So if you understand the friction points and you understand the exact elements for it, you can increase your close rates by being faster and responsive. And that could be as much as 10 to 20%. So if you're closing $1 million, bucks of business a year, basically, that could be like an extra 200 grand as well.
And that's not just better sales, really. It's just better memory.
So for example, so here in Dubai, there's so many property developments going on all the time, right? How many people are trying to sell to different people, and how many conversations are almost starting from zero? Think about it. Like when you talk with ChatGPT, if it hasn't got memory turned on, every time you have a conversation, it's like it's forgotten what happened before. That's how most customers experience most businesses. When they talk to that business, it's like they've talked to them for the very first time because there's no institutional memory.
Or they try and find the information.
And it's terrible.
And they lose the will to live by the time
But there
they
is no
have.
useful information,
Yeah.
let's be honest here, right? Like, so there's no actual meaningful information. So as a
Well, I'll
customer,
put you on hold. I mean, that goes away.
so the point here is like, if you're dealing with basically, it's like Memento. It's in that film, right? Where the guy can't remember nothing. So you think about it, if your customer service department or sales department is basically Memento, right? And the customer's like, every time I have to re-explain everything, the customer's going to lose the will to live and go somewhere else. So if you think about like, okay, these people inquired, and let's say it's a UK customer, you could look them up and you could say, okay, are they directors of any companies? What properties associated with that person? All this different information. Now, all of that can tell you like, this person's serious, right?
When's the last time they spoke to the company? What were they happy with? What was their sentiment? What was their propensity to buy?
Have they been here recently? So you can tell like who's serious. Then if you apply the attention of those people on those, or just on those use cases, it's the 80-20 principle, right? You focus your 80% of your effort on those 20% of customers that are really going to convert. You will move more deals, basically. And that again could be, 20% more close rates. I mean, like the cross-sell, upsell opportunity. And if you're a business that's like got like, you've acquired your competitors or you acquired a portfolio of companies where you can cross-sell services, I often find the cross-sell function is an afterthought. They thought about it when they wanted to buy the business, but they never execute it.
And also, so M&A, I mean, because in the studio, we're getting quite comfy now. It's gone for 2 hours. But so we're working with quite a few private equity funds and consolidators. And the point there is that you also want to take this model and install it into the targets, because it completely changes your economics and the value you're creating, doesn't it?
This is the fundamental thing, right? Most private equity playbooks are basically on cost extraction. How can I basically do two things? How can I consolidate more units together?
This point I was going to make is why I've done this, right, is number one is cost extraction. So it's your synergies. Take out the finance department.
But that's
half
cost
marketing.
synergies.
Yeah. Well, it's cost synergy. But the hardest thing in any consolidator is the cross-sell, upsell.
They don't want to do that as well.
Well, they do want to do it, but they can't.
Because a number of times
It's
I've spoken
hard.
with a national group and they've said, look, we don't dictate the individual units, how they run. We let them be locally managed, basically, right? Yet they see all these things that they can do. And I get it, right? You just acquired someone's business and you've got them tied in for 3 years to 5 years. And you want to make sure that they can hit their targets as well. And you don't want to suddenly change the management and all that kind of
Help
stuff.
them with the earnout.
Help them.
Yeah.
Help them help you.
Help them with the
Help
earnout.
them help you, basically,
Yeah,
right? So that's
yeah.
the point here. Like analyst agents turn on upsell, cross-sell, like it's the whole point is you can unlock so much revenue upside by using analyst agents, action agents, interactive agents, like just that. There's so much revenue opportunity you can unlock. So imagine you've got the cost structure taken out because the finance department's consolidated or the procurement department's consolidated into cost savings there. And then you're turn on
I was
upsells.
a banker at Credit Suisse. We used to use murder models, right? So you do your cost synergies. It's all quite straightforward. Then you start talking about revenue synergies. And you used to all look at each other across the table thinking, they never happen. And now there's no need for them not to. Right, let's wrap it up though, because people are busy. So this was episode 2 of a series. The last one's going to be we're going to talk about going from, okay, you know what agents are now, going from pilot to platform. But now you know what digital workers really are. So look out for that. I don't know if I can get these in after each other or not. It depends. We've got a few guests on the show as well. So we're in Dubai. We're out here putting the AI in Dubai, as we like to say. Exactly. And again, if you enjoyed the pod, download the Workforce Playbook. Right, all we're doing here, to be quite frank, is going through this playbook.
It's a very detailed playbook.
Literally, we've spent like 2 years of insights, some pain, to be quite honest with you. We've distilled it and produced it in this book. We're actually now producing hard copies of it, aren't we?
Absolutely. So
it's like bedtime reading.
I can see that it's also like a meeting discussion.
Yeah.
So like we're going to be producing hard copies of this along with some kind of checklists and different things. So if you're interested in that, let us know, right? We can produce more hard copies of different elements because we really want to help kickstart the conversation in boardrooms and companies worldwide, basically, right?
Yeah, and it's a bit different having it to sort of share around than, emailing around.
You can write
on
it, you can put a sticky note and you say like, what do you think of this, basically?
Yeah, you can wrap it up Christmas present.
Exactly.
It's fantastic. So that's great. Please leave a review. Anything we've missed?
No.
Great. Leave a review. Download the Workforce Playbook. Want to join a webinar? Look out for those Thursday, 11:30. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.
See you next time.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of the Implement AI podcast. If you're interested in learning more about how we can assist you and your business in leveraging AI for growth and efficiency, visit our website at implementai.io. Don't forget to subscribe to the Implement AI podcast on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, or wherever you listen to stay updated on future episodes. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.